Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It's Thursday at 9 o'clock. It's time for a Magic Stuff. Now today I'm going to be doing another one of the 3 Best Tricks series. And today I'm going to be looking at 3 of the best oil and water routines that you've probably never seen before. Now I tend to find that oil and water is a little bit like Marmite. And what I mean by that, you either love oil and water or you hate it. There's kind of no middle ground. I've spoken to magicians about this before. They absolutely hate oil and water. And some people love it. My attitude is I've been using oil and water for years. It can be a very commercial kind of premise. It can be an interesting hook. But the problem is a lot of routines are too procedural and they go on too long. It's like I've seen routines that are like 10 phases and it's like, look, let me mix them up again. Now they're going to separate again. Now they're going to separate again. And a lot of the routines that you see, there's a lot of moves in there and it kind of feels very movie. So I can see why a lot of magicians don't like them. But as a premise, the hook is great because everybody understands the concept of oil and water. So if you, from a hook line point of view, you can turn around and you can say, hey, do you remember learning about oil and water in school? Well, let me tell you something that you can do with a pack of cards, which is very similar. Instantly, you've got that hook. And if you can put together a routine that doesn't require a table or has some sort of interesting element to it, then it can be super commercial. The other problem I have with oil and water is there's typically no ending to the routine. Most of the routines I've seen when people do oil and water, it's a case of we're going to make them separate. We're going to make them separate again. We're going to make them separate again. That's the end of the trick. Let's move on. And there's no kind of ending, if that makes sense. I've looked at hundreds of oil and water routines, and I'm not exaggerating. I've looked at so many different oil and water routines over the years because it is a plot that I'm kind of interested in. And on this video, I'm going to present for you not just the 3 oil and water routines that you've not seen before, but 3 oil and water routines that I think are really damn good. Because all 3 of these bring something to the table that I think is missing from a lot of other oil and water routines, if that makes sense. So I'm going to present these 3 for you. All of them have kind of flown under the radar. So I'm going to talk about where you can learn them from. I'm going to talk about where you can where you can get all the information you need in order to perform them. But if you've, I want you to try something for me. If you've never tried performing in oil and water for real people, try it because they do engage in it. You know, I mean, look at the ambitious card. The card comes to the top of the deck. It comes to the top of the deck again. It comes to the top of the deck again. It can be boring if you don't inject something into it, if you don't inject your personality into it. It's the same with oil and water. It is going to be boring unless you kind of make it a little bit more interesting. So I'm gonna go through these 3 routines with you right now, and I'm going to talk about all 3 of them. I'm going to perform all 3 of them for you as well, and hopefully my goal here is to inspire people to learn 1 or all 3 of these routines. If you've performed oil and water before, I think you'll really enjoy learning these routines. And if you've never performed oil and water routines before, I think these are some interesting ones that you should have a look at. So without further ado, let's have a look at the first oil and water routine. So the first routine I'm going to be talking to you about is Technicolor Oil and Water by David Solomon. Now, Technicolor Oil and Water, what makes this different to any other oil and water is that the backs of the cards are a different color to each other. So the black cards have blue backs and the red cards have red backs. Now, this has been done a few different times. In fact, on this channel a little while ago, I actually performed a David Regal version of this. I think he calls it Perfectly Oiled, which uses the same premise. Now, David's routine uses 2 full decks of cards, and there's not any gimmicks. It's just 2 full decks of cards, and it uses sleight of hand. David Solomon's routine is gaff to the hilt. I mean, it is absolutely, completely and totally gaff to the hilt. There's 3 or 4 different elements that make up the gaffs in these cards. But because of the gaffs that are in play and also because of the routining, it allows for some very clear displays. So I'm going to perform the routine for you, and then I'm going to talk about what's good about it and what's potentially not so good about it. But I want you to see the routine first of all. So let's have a look at a quick performance of Technicolor Oil and Water by David Solomon. I have Sarah behind the camera. Hey, Sarah.
Hey.
And Sarah, it's your job to watch very, very carefully.
Okay.
Because you're not going to believe your eyes. Now, I've got 8 cards here altogether. And they're from 2 different decks. I've got these 4 red cards, red back cards.
And some blue.
And yeah, I've got four blue back cards as well. 4 red cards, 4 blue cards. Now, it's really important that you keep track of where the red cards are and the blue cards are the entire time. And to make that easy to follow, I've made it so that the red cards have red faces. So that way, whether the red cards are face up or face down, you'll know where they are the entire time. Now, these 4 blue cards here, I've done the same thing. So you can keep track of where's what. I've made these black. So whether these cards are face up or face down, you'll know exactly which cards are where the entire time. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I'm going to try and mix these cards up, and I'm going to go as slowly as I can. Look, I'm going to put a blue card, then I'm going to put a red card. Then I'm going to put a blue card, then I'm going to put a red card. Then I'm going to put a blue card, then a red card, then a blue card, then a red card. So they're kind of alternating like that.
Yeah.
That kind of makes sense. Now, all I have to do is square them up.
Okay.
And this is probably one of the weirdest things you'll ever see. Hopefully, this is going to work. If I just give the cards a twist, that's the signal for the magic to work. You see, when I do that, what happens is the cards separate. You see, now over here, I've got the 4 red cards, and over here, I've got the 4 black cards. The cards separate reds and blacks.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, there's a rule in magic, never meant to repeat the trick, but I'll do it again. I'll do it again. This time you know exactly what's going to happen. But I'm going to go really slowly. I'm going to hold those black cards face up, and I'm going to very, very cleanly take the red cards and place them, yeah, if I can get that one in there, I'm going to place them right there in between the black cards, so you can see them. That's fair, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Now watch. You can see that they're alternating, red, black, red, black, red, black, red, black.
I can, yeah.
I do nothing. I'm just going to put the cards down on the table. I wait 3 seconds and I snap. And when I do, it works because now the cards have separated. And it works every single time. I mean, they really have separated. You can see that. People, when I do this, they say, well, that's really impressive, but what else can you do? Well, I can actually go one step further. I can keep these cards separated, yeah, like that. And all I have to do is wait another 3 seconds, snap my fingers, and turn everything over. And do you know what happens when I do that?
No.
The cards automatically mix themselves up.
Oh, yeah.
It's really crazy. Of course, every trick needs a big finish. So let's see if we can go for the big finish here. I'm gonna go for the big finish. Let's see if we can do this. Watch. If I just riffle up the deck, it's done. Do you know what happens when I do that?
I'm guessing that they...
One last time, these cards separate. Now, we've got the 4 red cards over there. And over here, we've got the 4 black cards with the blue backs. That's the black cards over there, the red cards over there, and everything has separated one more time. So that's Technicolor Oil and Water. You can see that I absolutely love that moment in the routine where they can openly see you've taken the red cards and you've put them in between the black cards one at a time. They can see that the cards are mixed up red and black, and you just put them down on the table, you snap and you spread, and they can see that they've separated. That moment right there is absolutely beautiful. And a second later, you show that they've mixed. I love that moment. I really do. And there's some really strong displays in there. Because you're using gaffed cards, there's some very strong displays. So let's talk about the pros and cons. First of all, let's get the cons out of the way. You are going to need a table for this. You can't do this without a table. So that's something that you need to bear in mind. You don't need a close-up pad or anything like that, but you are going to need a table because you are going to be putting cards down at various different points, and there's no way to get around that. The other thing is these you can't have, I suppose you could maybe come up with a way of taking these cards out of a regular deck, but because of how the cards are set up, you probably find that a little difficult. It has to be kind of presented as a packet trick, which I have no problem with because I love packet tricks, but it's something that you need to be aware of. You can't have these in a deck of cards and take them out. It has to kind of come out of a packet trick wallet and you show it as a packet trick. The cards are very heavily gimmicked. You can't have the cards examined beforehand, you can't have them examined afterwards, and you can't have them examined during. Now, maybe you could use a Himba wallet and you could switch them out at the end if that becomes an issue for you. But again, that's something that you need to bear in mind. Now, the pros to this routine, first of all, and this is an advantage over this routine compared to Perfectly Oiled by David Regal, because of the gaffs that are being used, you've got a very clear display at the beginning of 4 red cards with red backs and 4 black cards with blue backs. And I think when you're doing a routine like this, it lives and dies by the conviction of the audience on how the cards are actually meant to be. If you've got dodgy displays and they're questioning whether those red cards actually have a red back, then you're dead in the water. It's as simple as that. But the nice thing about this routine is you've got a very clean display at the beginning, showing 4 red cards with red backs, 4 blue cards with black faces. And then at the very end, the final display is again, you show very cleanly 4 red cards with red faces and 4 blue cards with black faces. So that helps from a conviction point of view. There are some really nice sequences in this routine, and it all logically flows from one moment to the other. So you start off by mixing them face down, then they separate, then you mix them face up, then they separate, then they mix, then they separate. It all kind of makes sense. The problem with this, and this is a problem with a lot of oil and water routines, I touched on this at the very beginning, is there is no ending as such. The final phase is them separating again. It's not different to the other phases, if that kind of makes sense. It's kind of like they mix, they separate, they mix, they separate, they mix, they separate. That's the end of the trick. And really, this trick needs kind of an ending, and there is no ending to give it. So that's the other negative. But the positive is, my gosh, this is such a clean version, especially for like a virtual show, for social media. You can have the camera right on the cards and it looks so clean. That moment when you spread it out on the table, it looks really, really clean. And because the backs are a different color and because the displays are so clean at the beginning, excuse me, people are 100% confident they know where all the cards are the whole time. So that when and because of that, the mixing sequences are very convincing because you can openly see that the cards are mixed up, and then just by turning them over, they separate. Also, another advantage is it's a pretty much instant reset. All you have to do is just 2 slip cuts as you're putting the packet trick away, and it's reset ready to the next table. So that's something that's good about it as well. So there you go. It's called Technicolor Oil and Water. It's by David Solomon. You can get it as a standalone item from all good magic dealers. It's available through Murphy's Magic, so you can get it from absolutely anywhere. It's an interesting one to learn when you actually sit down and you learn it. By the way, it's so old. You're not going to have a download for this or a DVD for this or anything like that. Literally what you've got is you've got a manuscript, and you just open the manuscript and you learn the trick. So it's kind of old school in that respect. But when you're sitting down and you're learning it and you're learning the routine, you kind of think to yourself over and over again, this is so clever. This is so clever. So there you go. There's a few cons, but I really wanted to draw it to your attention because I do think it's flown under people's radar and a lot of people aren't aware of this. What we're going to do now is we're going to look at another version of Oil and Water, but this version I love even more than Technicolor Oil and Water, because even though you haven't got the different coloured backs, it gives a killer ending to the routine. In fact, I'd say this is probably one of the best endings to an oil and water routine you're ever going to see. Let's have a look at that one right now. So next up, we're going to be looking at Neomix. Now, Neomix was marketed by Vanishing Ink about 2 or 3 years ago. When I've spoken to magicians, a lot of magicians haven't heard of Neomix before, which really surprises me because it's a really cool routine. And I think that when Vanishing Ink released it for some reason or another, and I don't know why, it flew under people's radar, and now it's so old, a lot of people don't know about it. But it's available from Vanishing Ink. It's also available from all good magic dealers. I'll put a link in the description down below. But Neomix, It's only like a 20-minute download, but that's all you need. What you actually get with Neomix is you get 8 specially, is it 8? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, I think it's 8. You get 8 specially printed cards. And what these specially printed cards allow you to do is give an ending to oil and water, which is my big bugbear with oil and water. There is no ending. It allows you to have a very clean final phase, which is brilliant. I'm going to perform the routine for you first of all. Now I'm going to perform the routine exactly as it's taught on the download. And what I mean by that is one of the beautiful things about Neomix is you can take this, and once you understand the concept, you can incorporate it into any oil and water routine that you do already. But on the download, they teach a 2-phase oil and water routine before going into Neomix, and they actually explain that. It's a really nice 2-phase oil and water routine. So I'm gonna perform it exactly as it's taught on the download, so you can see the whole thing that you learn, and then we'll talk about the pros and cons of actually Neomix as a whole. So let's have a look at a performance of this right now. I've got Sarah behind the camera. Hey, Sarah.
Hey.
And we're going to do something with a pack of cards. This is a card trick. But I'm going to tell you right now, obviously I've got the whole deck of cards, but I don't need the full deck. I'm just going to use a few cards here, to be perfectly honest. It's not going to be a full deck of cards. It's going to be, I'm just going to use 8 cards in total. Okay?
Yeah.
But I do need the card box for later on, and you'll see why. And I've already put the cards that I need on the face of the deck. I need these 4 cards here, which are 4 red cards, and I need these 4 black cards as well. Now, I'll be honest with you, doesn't really matter what the value of the cards is. Doesn't even matter what the suit of the cards are. All that's important is that we have 4 red cards and 4 black cards, and the 4 black cards go over here, and the 4 red cards go over here. Okay? Now I want you to watch. I'm going to go really, really slowly. I'm going to take the red cards and I'm going to try and alternate the red cards with the black cards. So I'm going to put a red card down, then I'm going to put a black card down, then I'm going to put a red card down, then a black card. You get the idea. I'm alternating the reds and the blacks like that. Does that make sense? So they're kind of alternated like this. Now I want you to watch. With no sleight of hand, I just snap. And when I do, you actually have the 4 cards separate. So now we've got the red cards over here. And if the red cards are over here, that means over here, we've got the 4 black cards.
Yeah.
Now, there's a rule in magic. You're never meant to repeat a trick. But I am going to do this again for you. This time you know exactly what's going to happen. But I'm going to go really fair and really slow. Watch. Red, black, red, black, red, black, red, black. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Now watch. I just snap my fingers. That's all I have to do. And when I do, we have red, we have red, we have red, we have red. We have the 4 red cards over here. And over here, we have the 4 black cards.
You do.
Now, there's a thing in magic that every single time you do a trick, it has to build, right? So I'm going to try and do this in a way that's completely impossible. Can you do me a favour and just check the card case out for me? Yeah. Just make sure that there's... it's empty. I don't really think there's any wires, magnets, trapdoors, secret compartments, any midgets in there or anything. Make sure
there's
it's
definitely no midgets.
No midgets, good. So it's just a normal pack.
Shame, I like midget gems.
I don't know how you got to that there, but that's fine. So check this out. Look, I'm gonna go really slowly. You check the card case out now. You see the cards; they're separate right now.
Yeah.
Yes. What you're about to see is completely impossible. I'm just going to pop them in here like this, right?
Yep.
Now watch, this is very difficult. This is probably the hardest thing I do.
What, shake a box?
Shut up, I'm being... This is very difficult. No, this is hard. This is...
Huh?
This is... You have to get it just right.
That's technical, isn't it?
This is very technical, yeah. Even Di Vernon couldn't do this. Right, okay, I've got it. One more. Done.
Right.
You checked the card box.
I did.
You saw the cards when they went in, didn't you?
I did.
Check this out, because now inside the box they actually mixed themselves up. They were red, 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 black, 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 black. They've now mixed themselves up. Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Now, when you do this, if you're going to learn to do this trick yourself, and that is a very difficult technique to learn, if you're going to do this yourself, no, it really is, don't mock me. If you're going to do this technique, you want to use a card box. Always use a card box. Don't try and mix them up in your hand like this, because if you try and do that, it won't work. Do you know what will happen?
No.
Well, the whole cards will get screwed up.
Disappear?
No, the cards will get screwed up. See, that card, not every single, I mean, all of them, they'll just all get screwed up. I mean, it's...
Huh?
Yeah, every single one of them will just get complete. I mean, you can't do anything with those. Look, you've screwed the whole cards up. So when you're doing this, make sure you use the card box, else you're going to end in that situation, and that's not a good situation to be in.
It's a little crazy.
It's a little crazy. Now that ending is killer. I'm sure you'll agree. I remember the first time I saw Neomix, I was like, my God, that's brilliant. As somebody who really likes oil and water, I was just like over the moon with that. I was like, I have to have that. That's so cool. Now, so first of all, the first two phases. So the first two phases, I'll tell you right now, you do have to have a couple of gimmick cards in there that aren't supplied with Neomix in order to accomplish that first phase, if that kind of makes sense. So you do need to have a couple of gimmick cards. But the first two phases are very clean. You've got a very nice mixing display on both moments. You do have to palm in the second phase. For people that don't like palming, that's something worth knowing. However, when you have the box examined, that's when you go into Neomix. And the final kind of basically two phases, that's Neomix. And you can mix that into, pun intended, you can mix that into any oil and water routine that you want. So when you have the box examined, it's very, very motivated. You're going to be switching in the Neomix cards then. And you've got, first of all, that lovely moment where you show the cards are separate, you put it in the card box. And I love that moment where you're shaking the card box, never fails to get a laugh. And then you take the cards out and they've mixed. And then you just shake them and the cards are all mixed up like that. It's incredible. It's a great ending. It really is. Now, when you've produced the Neomix cards, you have got one of those cards that are gaffed. And on the download, they talk about hiding that, and that's absolutely fine. What I tend to do when I perform this, and I've performed this in the real world quite a few times, is people tend not to remember how many cards there are there. So I tend to just palm one of those cards off. I show them all, and I palm one of the cards off as I just hand a couple of cards here, a couple of cards here, a couple of cards here. Nobody's checking how many cards they are. They're just looking at the cards. Because they've never seen cards like this. It freaks about Sarah had never seen that routine before, and she said to me after I'd finished filming it, she went, "Oh, those cards are really cool." So it is a nice ending. It's kind of almost like a jumbo coin production with a coin routine. If you've ever done a jumbo coin production, when you do a coin routine, that's great, but you make that jumbo coin appear, and that's all anybody wants to see. All people want to see is that jumbo coin appearing in front of everybody, right? They want to touch it, they want to feel it. They've never seen anything like that before. Well, it's the same with these cards. It's very close to being an automatic reset. You just take the cards back and you just put them back onto the deck. Now, in order to do the routine the way that I did it, which is the way that's in the instructions, you are going to have the deck pretty much devoted to this routine, because you're going to have to take cards out in order to have the Neomix cards in. You're going to have a setup on the face of the deck. You're going to have to be able to switch the Neo cards in as you're having the card box examined. So that deck of cards is set up for Neomix. Now, the other way you can do it is you can use a Himba wallet or a switching envelope, have like a Himba envelope and just keep the cards inside there and present it as a packet trick. And what you can do is you can do like an oil and water routine, put the cards away and go, actually, let me see if I can try something else, and then take the cards back out, and then you're into Neomix. So you can do it that way if you want to. You don't have to actually switch from a deck, in which case that the pocket space will be saved at that point, if that kind of makes sense. Yeah, other than that, there's no real negatives really to talk about. It's just a really strong routine. It really is, and it kills. It really kills. As somebody who's done this in the real world many, many times, I can tell you right now, it never fails to get a really good reaction. And you'll do it, and you'll be kind of like, oh my gosh, this is great. And you'll do it again and again and again. So it's called Neomix. You can get it from Vanishing Ink. As I say, there's not a real negative to it. It really is one of the best oil and water routines I've ever seen. And as I say, what's crazy is I've never seen anyone else doing it. I've never seen anyone else doing it. And I've spoken to lots of magicians about oil and water routines, and nobody even knows about it. So let me know in the comments down below if you do it. There's not really any negatives, as I say, other than the fact that you are going to need a deck of cards set up to do this routine. And there's probably like a 10-second reset at the end that you need to bear in mind. Right, with that in mind, let's have a look at the final oil and water routine. And this is nice because it's from a shuffled deck in use. Okay, so this next routine, this final routine, this final oil and water routine that you've probably never seen before, was published by me many, many years ago in an ebook, and I called it Oil and Water Extreme. And it was, the reason I put this together is because I wanted to achieve two things. First of all, I wanted to give oil and water an ending, because that's always been my bugbear with oil and water. There's never been an ending. And also, I wanted to have it work from a shuffled deck in use. I didn't want to have any gimmicks with me. I didn't want to have any extras with me. I wanted to be able to do it anytime, anywhere. And I didn't want to need to have a full deck or a deck that's set up. I wanted to grab my deck that I've had cards ripped up and signed up and be able to go into this routine anytime, anywhere. That was the desire when putting this routine together. And this is the routine that I've performed out of all three oil and waters. This is the one that I've performed more than anything else. And the reason is, I can do it on the fly. So a lot of the time, this isn't my go-to card routine. But if I've been at a table a couple of, if I've been doing like 10 or 15 minutes of card magic, or let's say I've been called back to a table and I've already got their attention, this is something that I'll go into. I'm going to perform it for you first of all. And once I've performed it for you, I'll go through what I really like about this routine and the pros and the cons. I have Sarah behind the camera. Hey, Sarah.
Hi.
Now, this trick is Fastidio, which means from a shuffled deck in use. And to prove to everybody that this is from a shuffled deck in use, you get to shuffle the cards.
Ooh, yay.
So give them a mix-up. Oh, yay. Couldn't have sounded more sarcastic if we tried. So from a shuffled deck of use...
Something I don't do every day.
Hey, you can't see her behind the camera. She's rocking a riffle shuffle, a waterfall shuffle right now. Very, very impressive. Sarah can do a perfect faro shuffle every single time, which is quite impressive. There you go. Thank you very much. So, you'll like this trick, because this trick is not a magic trick. This is all about science.
All right.
And you used to be a science teacher, so you'll like this. Now, I'm going to... No, seriously, you will. Because I'm going to take out 8 cards from the deck. I'm going to take out red cards and black cards. I'm going to take out 4 red cards, and I'm going to take out 4 black cards. Doesn't really matter what the cards are, but I need 4 red cards and 4 black cards. We're going to get to those in a minute, okay? Now, you shuffle these cards, and you did a nice waterfall shuffle. If I did a shuffle like this, do you know what this is called? It's called a mess. Yeah, it's called a mess. I'm going to shuffle the cards face up and face down, which kind of screws the deck up. And you'll see why I'm going to do this later on. This is going to become kind of part of the big finale. But when you shuffle a deck of cards like this, you've got cards back to back, you've got cards back to face, cards mixed up throughout the whole of the deck. In fact, if I asked you to sort these cards out so they're all facing the right way, how long do you reckon it would take you?
I don't know, for a little while.
Take a while, right? Well, I'm going to put them over there, and we're going to get back to that deck in a minute. We're going to start off with just the 8 cards that I took out. And I said this was about science, and it is. It's kind of where science meets magic, which is why I shuffled the deck like that. But this is primarily about science, and this is an interesting fact. These cards are printed by the US Playing Card Company in Cincinnati, Ohio. And you might not realize this, but when they print these cards, the black ink that they print on the cards is slightly heavier than the red ink. Did you know that? Which means that because the black ink is heavier, you can do some kind of interesting stuff with this. And I can prove this to you. Watch.
I'll take you
watch. No, watch. You'll see. Let me do an experiment, because you're all about science. You like experiments. So look, I'm going to hold them at the same level. Yes, that's about the same level. Now watch. I'm going to drop them at the same time. Did you see that the black... No, did you see that? That's science right there.
Yeah,
no,
okay.
Look, let me do it again. Just, repeat the experiment. Did you see that? The black...
You drop the black ones first.
No. That's an optical illusion. It's not. The black ink's heavier.
Okay.
And to prove to you that that's the case, I'm going to show you something. I'm going to alternate these cards. Look, red, black, red, black, red, black, red, black, like that. Do you see that? So they go red, black, red, black, red, black, red, black, all the way through. Now, all I have to do is blow... And when I do, what's interesting is the 4 black cards and the 4 red cards, they separate. Now, I'll explain how that works. Because the black ink is heavier, the black ink it drops down, but it's a bit like oil and water. You know, like when you learn about oil and water in school, it's kind of a similar concept.
Yeah, like you make a lava lamp or something.
Yeah, exactly. I'll do it again for you. Look, I'm going to take the black cards. I'm going to put the black cards over there. I'm going to take the red cards over here. Let me do it again. Look. Black, red, black, red, black, red, black. Whoops, there you go. Black, red. You can see that they really are being mixed up. I just have to leave it for a second. The black ink sinks down to the bottom right there. It works every single time. Every single time. I could do this over and over again until we both got bored with it. But let's do it one final time. Would you like the black cards or the red cards, Sarah?
Black.
Okay, take the black cards for me. And we're going to mix them together. So you're going to need to kind of come a little bit closer for me. You take I've got the red cards. You pick up the black cards. Actually pick them up.
Yeah.
Very good. And put a black card on my hand. Very good. I'm going to put a red card on top and then put a black card on my hand. That is a black card, isn't it? Yeah. And we're going to put a red card on top. Put a black card on my hand. We put a red card on top. Put my black card on my hand. Put a red card on top. Now, I would normally give this to you. You would hold it yourself completely still for a split second. And when you turn it over, they've separated. It works every single time. But I said that this is a trick that's going to mesh magic and science, and it really is. Do you remember we shuffled these cards face up into face down? Yeah. And I asked you how long it would take you to sort them out so they're all facing the right way. And you said quite a while. Let me show you the difference between magic and science. Magic looks like this. That's me sorting out all the cards so they're facing the right way. But science is the fact that this deck of cards has been sitting over here for the best part of 2 or 3 minutes while we were messing around with that. And while these cards were sitting here, the black cards in the deck were settling. So if it works with 8 cards, it should work with every other card in the deck that you shuffled yourself.
Because the black ink
is heavier. And so now, you know I'm not joking. You can see that the black ink is heavier than the red ink. And that is my lesson in science. So there you go, that's Oil and Water Extreme. Now, what I did when I put this together is I took some of my favourite concepts and my favourite sequences and added some of my own stuff as well to create this routine that I think builds. And I think one of the strongest things about this, other than the fact that it's a shuffle deck in use and there's an ending, is I really like the fact that it builds. So first of all, you have the cards shuffled, and I think it's really important in this trick that you do have the cards shuffled because of the full deck ending at the end. And then you go into mixing the cards. You take the cards out, you mix the cards face up and face down. You put them over there and you forget about them. Then you go into the oil and water. Now, the first phase is just run really quickly to grab their attention, which I absolutely love. And then the second phase, you go very slowly and very methodically, and they can burn your hands and they can see that you really are mixing up the cards, and yet still they separate. And then the third phase, which is a John Bannon sequence, you have that moment where they're mixing up the cards with you. And that's what I mean by building. So on the third phase, now they're focusing, they're laser focused, and they're dealing the cards along with you, and yet still they separate. And then you go into that final phase where you take the deck, and first of all, the deck sorts itself out a la Triumph, which don't underestimate that. I know as magicians, we kind of look at the slip slop shuffle and we go, oh, okay. But to laymen, you know, anyone who's seen Jay Sankey's Back in Time routine will tell you the slip slop shuffle can kill a layperson. And it's the same with this. You know, you do that moment where you spread the cards out and you say, well, let me show you the difference between magic and science. And you spread the deck out and they're all sorted out and they're all facing the right way. Killer, absolutely killer. But then you say, well, hang on, the cards there, they've settled. And then you turn the deck over and now they've separated into red and black. Such a great moment, it really is. They don't see that coming. And that's what I mean about having a great ending to Oil and Water. They shuffled the cards at the very beginning. They mixed the cards up. They know the cards were shuffled, and yet you spread them out. And now at the very, very end, you've mixed the cards that they shuffled and now sorted out into red and black. And again, Sarah just said to me when she'd never seen this routine before, and she said to me, she said, wow, she was really impressed. She didn't see the ending coming. She didn't know how I'd done it. She thought I'd done a deck switch or something. So it's a really nice moment. Now, the other thing about this trick is you don't need a table. This is also designed to be done in a walk around situation. So you don't actually need a table. When you've shuffled the cards face up into face down, you can put the cards into the card box and give it to someone to hold if you haven't got a table, and give them that box to hold. And you say, look, we've mixed the cards face up into face down, you hold on to those. And then each phase is designed to be done without a table. I just get people to hold their hands out and I mix them in their hands. There's no table required, so it's perfect for mix and mingle situations. It's perfect for walk around situations. And I love the hook at the beginning with the whole oil and water thing, and the black cards drop before the red cards, which is a stupid bit, but it always gets a laugh. And that's what's important about any card routine, but especially oil and water. You need to make it entertaining. You don't want to take yourself too seriously. So I love that, because I set the premise and then I do this thing and people realize at that point I'm joking. First person I saw do that thing where you drop it and the blacks are heavier, it's older than Steve, but the first person I saw do it was Steve Della in a lecture many years ago, but I know it predates Steve. But yeah, I mean, that's the oil and water routine. It's called Oil and Water Extreme. Nice thing is you're left with a shuffle deck of cards in use. And the other nice thing is, from a transitional point of view, when you've separated the deck out so it's all mixed up red and black, if you want to go into something where there's a red and black separation, like maybe you want to transition into something like Out of This World, or you want to do Neither Blind Nor Stupid, you want to do a Perfect Pharaoh and get yourself into something like Neither Blind Nor Stupid, you can just give the deck a full shuffle. So you show the finale where the cards are mixed, separated reds and blacks. You then full shuffle the deck, maybe give it some Zarros or some push-through shuffles or some truffle shuffles or something like that, or even just, a few full scuds. And you're back into a situation where you've got the deck divided into red and black, and you can go in any direction from there, which is quite nice as well by having that red-black separation at the end. So it's called Technicolor Oil and Water. You can't, no, it's not. That's David Solomon. It's called Oil and Water Extreme. Now, you can't get the ebook that it's in anymore. However, it has been shot for Netrix. So when Netrix launches, it will be one of the routines that launches. It's going to launch with about 100 routines, and that's one of the routines it's going to launch with. So if you're interested in it, keep an eye out for Netrix, because it is going to be launching on there, but that's the only place you can really get it at the moment. But yeah, it's a really fun routine, and I've been doing it for years, and I hope you like it. So there you go, guys. That is 3 oil and water routines that you have probably never seen before. Let me know in the comments down below which is your favorite. I'm biased. I prefer the oil and water extreme, and that's because I've been doing it longer than all the others. But all of them, Neomix, the Technicolor Oil and Water and Oil and Water Extreme, they've all got their pros and their cons, and I love all of them, and I think they really are 3 of the best oil and water routines out there. So let me know in the comments. Let's get a dialogue going. Do you hate oil and water? Do you love oil and water? Do you do an oil and water routine? In which case, which oil and water do you do? I would love to know. I would love to hear your thoughts, so please drop them down below in the comments. And don't forget, if you want to see more videos like this, do me a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment down below, and like the video. I'm going to be back again tomorrow at 9 o'clock with a magic rant, at 6 o'clock with a magic live. So I'll see you again. Thanks very much for watching. My name's Craig from Magic TV.